about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. So yesterday there was a nationwide outage of, I guess, the portal allowing access to Medicaid funds, the Medicaid system, which from what I understand is back online. I think during the RFK Jr. Department of Health and Human Services Senate confirmation hearing, Senate Finance Committee Chair Mike Crapo had said that the systems were back online and fully functional. There was, some disruption over the Medicaid portals. People were definitely losing their minds because they were afraid they wouldn't be able to access payment portals. Look, I remember Medicare didn't pay, never paid on a whole bunch of claims. And then EOBs went to patients saying I got paid and I never did. And when I told Medicare the money never went in, so it's very scary when you're trying to offer services and you can't get paid. And then I still didn't get paid. And that was during the Obama years. And so even though the Medicaid portals are back online, it does make some providers on the fence of providing Medicaid coverage or Medicare coverage or not to consider if they want that vulnerability. There's a lot of doctors that people are telling me are not taking Medicaid, not taking Medicare. And I'm not saying because of this one day outage, but I had so many issues with government funded insurance that it was really hard to be providers for that. And there's a lot of doctors now that do concierge or just take cash. Now they don't have to deal with any insurance. If you want to see that doctor, you pay them a few $1,000s a year. And that's it. They don't have to deal with insurance. They don't have to pay for billers. They don't have to deal with software. They don't have to fight with insurance companies to pay after the services were done. Or insurance companies saying, you know what, we think we overpaid. We're now bundling. Medicare did that with a bunch of doctors where they decided to go back and say, the money we paid you over the past couple of years for this one code, we've decided, no, we shouldn't have done that. Give the money back. And they do, or they take it from future payments. And so a lot of doctors over the years, especially after Obamacare, said, to heck with this, I'm just going to take cash. Now, there's still plenty of Medicaid providers. I don't think we have enough. But the more issues we have with government-run insurance, the more you're going to see this cash market. And I'm telling you right now, these doctors are busy. Patients don't mind spending the cash. They're spending more on their Obamacare. I wouldn't advise to not have insurance because there's still detrimental things that can happen and major medical expenses you could have. But there's a lot of people opting for cheaper plans and then just paying cash for the doctor, the medical provider. So according to the National Association of Medicaid Directors, Executive Director Kate McEvoy said Wednesday that the states are able to access payment portals. The D.C. and West Virginia Medicaid offices also confirmed the payment systems are back online. So, this happened after the Trump administration had ordered a pause on federal spending. So some of the portals we believe might have been tied to that. Some people said, no, it was a completely separate issue. It was a completely separate issue. So, you're going to hear a lot of back and forth on what's going to now happen to Medicaid, where Republicans are going to hurt 22 million people of the 72 million who are on Medicaid. And, we don't have a lot of details on what the Republicans want to do. But one thing that has been touted, which I think is a very popular piece, is work requirements for Medicaid. The argument people make as it pertains to, but you can't tell people they, need to work or show they're trying to work to get it. They may not be physically able. That argument doesn't stand because that's what Medicare is for. If you have physical incapabilities or medical issues preventing you to work, then you're on Social Security and Medicare. Medicaid is for people who fall under a certain poverty level. And if they can't find work, that's what Medicaid is for. But there are many individuals who are getting paid for jobs, and that money is still putting them under poverty level. And so they still qualify for Medicaid, understandably. And so I think the GOP is going to be looking at that. And what is the best way to insure individuals? But we have 72 million people on Medicaid, and we believe the majority of them are not working. Why aren't you working? If it's because you're ill, then you get to be on Medicare and you're covered. But if it's because you don't want to work, that's a concern. So when Medicaid was expanded during the Great Recession, it was supposed to sunset, but nobody ever put that in. So they expanded it, and it just kept, while people were getting, because a lot of people were getting fired in 2012, 13, 14. I know Google and Wikipedia say the recession ended in 2009, the day Obama took office. No, people were losing their jobs in droves all the way till late 2015. So Medicaid had to be expanded so people could still get medical insurance and coverage. Because what happened was Obamacare mandated that employers pay for your health insurance. So they said, well, then we're going to fire you. We can't, it's a recession. We can't afford the health insurance on top of this. Now that insurance is spiking because they're getting all these federal subsidies. So it was a mess. So people lost their job. So Medicaid, and understandably so, was expanded. But that was supposed to end when you went back to the workforce. Some people didn't go back to the workforce. In fact, you'll see article after article talking about how much money you really need to make it worth your while to get off the government dime. And in some cities and places in the United States, it's like $113,000. You would have to be making $113,000 to make it worth your time to get off the government dime. How many jobs out there are offering that much? So yes, people are like, I might as well stay home with the kids, get Medicaid, get CHIP, get all the other benefits, welfare. So Republicans are trying to look at ways to get people back to work, to get people. There's going to be a lot of government jobs. I'm telling you, a lot of people are going to quit February 6th because they don't want to return to the office. So then if you are going to be getting Medicaid, there's going to have to be some explanation as to why you're not working. If it's because you're ill, then you could get onto Medicare. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell our listeners who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me join you to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now and find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. If you think you deserve compensation, call now to find out how much you qualify for. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Hotshot Secret Stiction Eliminator.
Stiction, that sticky friction, undermines the performance of diesel engines. Third-party ASTM testing verifies that Stiction Eliminator removes 2 times as much stiction than any alternative on the retail shelf. Stiction Eliminator is formulated to be left in the engine oil. It works as you drive.
Available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hotshot Secret. Powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So RFK Jr., I think they're on a bathroom break right now, but there is the Senate confirmation hearing for RFK Jr. and his goal to make America healthy again. And it's been a little bit of a contentious, controversial sort of hearing, a lot of back and forth. Of course, Republicans very supportive and Democrats not so supportive. There were some people yelling. There's always somebody that shows up to these hearings when he says, I'm not anti-vaccines. There was, I think, a nurse in the room screaming, "You are." She got carried out, or not. She had to go out. And so, one question I got was, do I think RFK Jr. will be approved, will be confirmed? So I wouldn't be able to answer that until I knew what's going on with the Republicans have enough in terms of their number to vote a candidate in or an appointee in. But as you saw with Lisa Murkowski from Alaska and Susan Collins from Maine, they did not vote for Pete Hegseth. He still was able to get in. And if there is a tie, you have J.D. Vance who could vote them in. But I don't know if RFK Jr. has full Republican support. It's a very, very interesting pick for Health and Human Services Secretary because RFK Jr. earned that part of it under Trump's eye as to the Make America Healthy Again. We have obesity. We have food preservatives. Nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody has the guts to say something about it. We want to say something about it. Another thing that also I think caught Trump's eye is a lot of people voted for him because Biden said he wouldn't mandate a vaccine, and then the vaccine got mandated. And so many of Trump's voters wanted somebody who was not going to force vaccines on individuals. Yet what the Democrats are honing in on is he going to alter the vaccine program such that we're going to see spikes in infectious disease? Are we going to see issues as it pertains to pediatric illnesses like polio, et cetera? He has said he supports the polio vaccine. He supports the MMR vaccine. He likes some of the live attenuated vaccines. But his job as Health and Human Services Secretary is it's huge. And it is going to encompass CDC, FDA, a lot of them, from what I understand. And so the oversight over our foods, over, what we're exposing people to. He's been a huge advocate of stopping, let's look at the science and evaluate what the science says. And, it's interesting. It got brought up at the Senate hearing how he had made a comment years ago about the COVID vaccine where it didn't seem to target Black individuals and Ashkenazi or Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese, but it targeted other individuals like Black individuals. I don't have his direct quote. And he brought that up and he said he was quoting an NIH study. And the reason why I didn't fault RFK Jr. at first for saying something like that was because I have seen study after study where they will look at, like, I remember when I was in medical school, I was looking at something from the 1980s, which they improved upon because I went to medical school in the 90s. And they were talking about cervical cancer. And they found that cervical cancer was not very prevalent in nuns and Ashkenazi Jews. Now, there's Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews, Ashkenazi Jews of more Northern European, Russian descent, Sephardic Jews of more Middle Eastern, Southern descent. And so you'll see many studies not just say Jews, because your religion is, it's saying, oh, yeah, Catholics don't get this. Mormons don't get this. Yes, there can be subsets if you do have all Mormons and all Jews and all Catholics, doing their daily lifestyle the exact same. But Ashkenazi Jew is a demographic brought up a lot in science because of many of the studies that have come out, sadly, from Holocaust, from what Hitler did and their studies, And the Ashkenazi Jews have like when you do your DNA, your 23andMe, if you're Jewish and they pick up that you have genes similar to other Ashkenazi Jews, it's a very highly studied group of individuals. And also one of the reasons is because of the Warsaw Ghetto and other sorts of conditions that Jews were put into during the Russian pogroms and other times during history. There was unfortunately not as many removal as it pertained to cousins and things like that. I'm not saying there was incest or inbreeding, but there were, unfortunately, during times in our history where there wasn't a lot of, shall we say, diversity in terms of individuals being able to meet people of other demographics and other nationalities because they had to be confined in Jew-only spaces. And so there's a lot of studies that look at Ashkenazi Jews and genes and Tay-Sachs and things like that. And so I remember looking at this statistic on cervical cancer where you didn't see it that much in Ashkenazi Jews and priests or nuns, they said. And it was because, well, if nuns aren't having sex, they're not getting cervical cancer. Cervical cancer was believed to be spread by the HPV virus at the time. Even though they didn't isolate the HPV virus, they figured it was, I think they were just learning about that in the 80s at the time. And so Ashkenazi Jews, you couldn't have sex until you married. Very religious. Sephardic Jews have also piousness as well and not a shall we say, embrace of premarital sex, just like Catholicism and Mormonism. But it was interesting that study looked at that. Not that they didn't think there was an issue with Mormons or Catholics. It's just I don't believe that study was studied. So when RFK Jr. was citing that, I didn't pick it up as to saying Jews were behind the COVID vaccine and made sure that they weren't targeted. I didn't know. I have to find the NIH study that was looking at the numbers where certain demographics did better than others. If you remember, there was a study showing that smokers did better in COVID than non-smokers. I think the data's mixed. I think if you have vulnerable lungs, you got really hurt with COVID. But one theory behind that study showing smokers were not as badly affected is because the lungs are so scarred and dry that the cytokine storm wasn't able to happen from COVID, which caused the lungs to get very, very wet and people to be consumed by it and die. So, I know I've been asked about that. Do I think he's anti-Semitic? No. Do a lot of studies bring up Ashkenazi Jews and looking at what they are more prone to, like colon cancer, breast cancer versus other things? Yes, there are. And so he said he was citing an NIH study. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. That's, will he be confirmed? It's tricky. I don't know how many Republicans do not support him. I think many people, like I say, want someone looking at our foods, somebody increasing the transparency of the vaccine data, allowing parents to have choice. But we do have many individuals who want to, ensure that him, even though he's been advocating a lot for public health, et cetera, does he have the background and would he be the best fit? Now, even though I wish our Health and Human Services Secretary was always somebody of medical background, I do like the idea that he is bringing up things and may actually start doing things that I think should have been done the whole time, like looking at our preservatives, looking at why we're so obese, looking at why people aren't going to the doctor, even though we're spending billions on Obamacare. These are things that I know they want to expand telemedicine, which is very, very good in terms of increasing access. But we have to still get people into the doctor and get people checked in person. So, we'll see what happens. His hearing has been, I know Elizabeth Warren has been asking him about his relationships and if he's going to take money from lawsuits against pharmaceutical companies. And he said, if you're at, I guess Elizabeth Warren asked that he not take any money from lawsuits while he's Health and Human Services Secretary and after his term. And he said, "You're asking me not to sue? I'm not going to waive my right to be able to sue." So he was pretty adamant about that. But he looks a little nervous. They're bringing up a lot of his past quotes. And if he says he's pro-vaccine, but if his past quotes say he, isn't, what is he going to do with vaccines? And that I think he needs to kind of lay out that plan to reassure people what exactly he wants to do. 1-877-Daliah.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. So I'm going to kind of combine some of your question comments in this next segment. One of you had said that when you date, you're out there, you're Gen X, so you're roughly in my age range, and you want your prospective partner to do STD testing. And when you ask them for that, usually that romance ends pretty quickly. So when to ask for STD testing and how. Another one of our listeners wants to know how to approach the subject with a child who says they're not having sex, but you think they are. One of you thinks your husband might be cheating and you are concerned that you might have an STD. How do you get that tested without them thinking that you got it tested because you're cheating? So, these are very, very good questions. And so I'm going to kind of try to answer them all in this segment. So you're on a date. You like this person. Hopefully, if you met them online, you didn't go to like the most romantic, expensive date. You actually started easy, like coffee, lunch, started to get to know them. And now the relationship has progressed a little bit and the topic of sex is coming up. Some of you have a 5-date rule. Some of you have a 3-month rule. Some of you are fine with one-night stands. So depending on where you are in the relationship, you should always be concerned about STDs or STIs, sexually transmitted illnesses or sexually transmitted diseases. Chlamydia, gonorrhea, trichomonas, syphilis, HIV, hepatitis, B and C. So there's a lot of things that you need to be aware of. Herpes. And so bringing it up used to not be that hard. Being that I was dating in the 90s, after what happened in the 80s with HIV, it was a very easy conversation for people to have. They go, look, if you want to have sex, I want to see your, I want to know that you don't have anything, or I want you to use condoms, etc. And so getting STIs or STD screening was not that big a shock, not that, Nowadays, however, many people have been very lackadaisical about it, and we're seeing that with the big rise in STDs. And so you're on a date, and you're like, look, I want this to progress, but I need to know if you have any STIs. And the person says, that's fine. We'll use a condom in the meantime. You're like, nah, I really want to know. Can you go and do that first? Well, you used to be able to go to your doctor and say, well, you do that. Now it's a little different. Most people don't have a medical provider. So they have to actually, if they don't have a free, there also used to be free STD clinics. After what happened with HIV, I remember there was a lot of government funding for free STD clinics, so you could get tested, etc. And so those might not be as far and few between. Now, especially since testing is expensive, so people have to go to an urgent care or go and pay for the testing themselves. There are some labs that'll let you order your own labs, but the only thing is if you are positive for something, you really have to find a doctor right away to treat you. And some telemedicine companies might be able to help, some might not. So now it's a little harder. So you tell somebody on a date, which is what this person did, saying, I want you to get tested. They're like, I don't have the time or money, or forget it. Well, then you know what? You don't need to be with that person. That's actually a great test to see if that person is worth dating. If you bring up how you want to make sure that they don't have an STI and they have a problem with that and they decide to dump you, then you just saved yourself lifelong of misery, because anybody who is going to date you needs to be concerned about your health, is going to want to make sure they don't get you sick, is going to want to, protect you. Let's say you want to have children with this person. They obviously don't want you to get something that could affect the baby. So that I think so I would say bring it up. It's okay. You could say, look, I'm going to do my testing. You do yours, but I really like you and I can't wait for this to be a part of our relationship on a regular basis. But before we, do that, I'd feel more comfortable seeing your panel. And if they at all say no, hell no, you got your answer. That would be my suggestion. And I think bringing it up is absolutely fine. In fact, it's kind of a compliment that you want to have sex with them, and you want to have sex with them freely. I still use condoms, because tests could still miss things if it's too early. But the fact that you want to do that with them is a huge plus. Okay, but yeah, you want to know if they have a disease. So absolutely, I think that's appropriate. If you have a child who you think a teenager is sleeping and having sex or is sexually active, shall we say, and they are saying they don't have sex, there's a very easy way to handle that. Very easy way. And I used to do that, as a medical professional. We medical providers are very well versed on how to handle that. So if you have the conversation and your child says, I'm not having sex, right? You can tell them you believe them. I say, I just want you to know you could come to me and you could talk to me. But then if they are teenagers, especially, they're going through puberty, their physicals might, still need to be done. I think they all should be done. Doesn't necessarily mean they need to have pap smears. But if you, let's say, have a daughter, you could say, I'd like you to, do you still want to go to the pediatrician, or would you like starting to see, now that you're kind of going through your grown-up stuff, I want you to meet, a gynecologist. You could meet mine, or you could, if you feel more comfortable, going to their partner. And then as a parent, you do get a chance to talk to the medical provider. You aren't necessarily always in the room, but you could tell that medical provider if you do have some concerns. And you could say, look, I don't know if they're sexually active. If they don't feel comfortable talking to you, that's fine. But if they do feel comfortable, I just want to make sure they're safe. And oftentimes the teenager will talk to the medical provider. The medical provider has to promise, privacy, et cetera, unless, of course, there's something that's life-threatening. But get the medical provider involved, and we could have the conversation. And we could say, look, these are some things you need to be aware of. I'm glad you're not sexually active, but if you are, you should get tested for X, Y, and Z. These are signs I want you to look for, and concerns that STDs could have on your future fertility, et cetera, would be X, Y, and Z. And so you make sure you come to me so I can at least help you and, use condoms, et cetera. So we can at least have these conversations. And I'm going to tell you 90% of the time, plus, these teenagers say, yeah, I think I need to, be checked. And, you're getting examined. Teenagers are like, well, how the hell do I tell my mom if she sees the bill? When they see a lab bill, they might not necessarily see what the tests were. And if there were tests done, we used to always, on pelvic exams, always check for STIs. It was routine. That was just routine. It wasn't because we thought you had an STD. So we would offer routine testing anyway. And so that's something that, so now, You want to be tested because you think your spouse is cheating. But you're afraid somebody's going to see this and think that you are the one cheating. Again, this is the doctor's panel. They want to ensure that we don't have hepatitis. They want to ensure, I was having a little burning. They were worried about my prostate. And so it was routine for them to check gonorrhea and chlamydia because some prostatitis could be caused by that. I'm not cheating. They wanted to do the test. I told them they didn't need to, but they did the test and you see nothing. Your spouse is going to be happier that you don't have anything. If you do have something, you got some splaining to do. But also, there's something wrong with the relationship if you fear getting testing done for something and them freaking out about that. If your doctor wants you to be tested and they're worried about your health, that should come first. But if you do feel like your spouse could be cheating on you and you feel like you're being exposed, you and your spouse need to get to counseling. You need to know because you need to know if you need to use condoms. You have to protect yourself. But you have to come first. Get yourself checked. It's just not where, and it could be also your spouse is naive. They might not be thinking they could get something, and you're like, look, you're getting exposed. You need to be aware of this. 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. That's 800-910-7500. Call now to find out how much your case could be worth.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. We're getting some breaking news. The halt on freezing federal grants has been, from what I understand, rescinded because there was some chaos that ensued yesterday with the Medicaid portals and things like that. A lot of aid groups and charity groups saying that there were going to be lives in danger. There was critical funding for vaccines and other health issues frozen. And we didn't really get a lot of clarity of what was happening and why that was happening. And so we are being told by Matt Vaith, acting director of the White House Office of Management and Budget, that the OMB memorandum M2513 is rescinded. The first order had told federal agencies to temporarily pause all activities related to obligations or disbursement of all federal financial assistance. It paused federal grants, loans, and other financial assistance, according to Daily Mail, which could have totaled trillions in funding. Apparently, a lot of states started to sue. A district court had to put a freeze on it late in the night. And so there was a little bit of confusion. It wasn't supposed to be a blanket pause. I am wondering why the speed was. Were they finding that there was fraud? Were they finding that there was like a leaky faucet and they just wanted to stop and regroup? The issue, though, is whenever we make drastic moves, like we did with Obamacare and other things, sometimes that could cause some complications. That's why I said we have to be really careful with the repeal and replace. As much as I think Obamacare has been kind of a mess, with the exception of, I like the pre-existing condition clause. I like the fact that physicals are being covered. But you try to stop that abruptly, the way it was designed, it could mess up the entire healthcare system trying to regroup. So, and that's unfortunately how a lot of things are. You have a lot of spending. You have a lot, for example, the DEI, trying to stop a lot of the DEI trainings and money going to DEI programs. Sadly, and it inadvertently somehow affected teaching about the historical Tuskegee Airmen. Not sure why that was interweaved with DEI. That was history. And, you know, it was a very historical part and a heroic team of fighters. But for some reason that became get caught in the crossfire. So this might be showing Trump that some moves have to be done a little slowly, but my spidey sense is something is kind of concerning me for him to have to suggest that the federal funding gets paused. What did they find? What concerned them? What's been happening? And so until we get some clarity on that, and my guess is there was something that he did not like. And whether, like I said, it was fraud or whether there was spending or things that, you know, he felt should not have been getting the funds that they got, I don't know. So just to let you know, that's what happened. You know, interesting. I'm trying to hit some of your emails because some of these comments are really, really good. And they bring up fascinating topics for the show. One very, very common, shall we say, sentiment about the Super Bowl people are writing me about is how they don't want to see Taylor Swift. They were actually rooting against the Chiefs so they wouldn't have to see Taylor Swift. I like her music. You know, I think she is, fantastic at what she does musically, but I understand how people are sick of the Chiefs, etc. But there is this sentiment that people don't like to see, wealthy celebrities who have everything at their fingertips at such a blessed life. They don't feel good having to look at them and see that while they're struggling. And somebody had, when we talked about another listener had reached out about when we were talking about New Year's resolutions and making money. He says, I don't care. I want to be rich. I am tired of living like this. I want what the rich people have. And so I think what I want to talk about right now is we see these, like Succession, you see these shows where these people have private jets. You see these commercials. Well, if you are in a jam and you need to take a private jet, look at this. And you see them eat. You see, it was that guy from Shark Tank on a private jet commercial. And, I watch those too, and I'm like, oh, gosh, come on, please. No, I cannot afford going on a private jet. I cannot afford, like you see these VRBO commercials, right? Or Airbnb commercials where they're renting a huge glass patio balcony overlooking the ocean. And you're like, I usually am in Motel 6s, Comfort Inns, Holiday Inn Expresses, and I always want the free continental breakfast. So, it is kind of hard. It's okay. I know we're not supposed to covet thy neighbor. I know we're not supposed to feel jealousy, but it is difficult to see the luxurious life that some people have that you won't be able to have. That's a very common emotion. Now you acting on it and you getting all grumpy and you getting, homicidal, that's wrong. That's a whole other. But if you look at that going, you know what? I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch the Oscars and all these stars in thousands of dollars of dresses and jewels and fantastic diet and swag and dinner they get served and all. I don't watch the Oscars. Mostly because I don't even know what movies they're talking about. I watch shows on, Netflix. I'll watch Squid Game, things like that. But I don't even know what half these movies are. I might eventually see them. But it does start to kind of weigh on you, where these people get to fly to Paris if they want to, or they get to take a private jet, or they get to eat the best of foods. And here you are, Tom Brady. Now, Tom Brady, I think, earned it because he worked. He was a quarterback. Athletes. Some of these professional athletes may be overpaid, but when somebody puts that kind of work in, actors and actresses, they do work, but really for millions of dollars? Now that's it does, and it if it doesn't sit well with you and you do get kind of envious, that's a very normal emotion. But what you need to also realize, and it's always, I feel so bad when you see some of these wealthy people are depressed and then they commit suicide, and people are like, why would they do that? They had everything. Well, because everybody still has their drama, whether you're rich or not. Everybody still has health issues. They still can get cancer. They still can get cheated on. Jennifer Aniston, as beautiful as she is, was cheated on. Brad Pitt met Angelina Jolie, and I like Brad Pitt and his acting, but that wasn't a good husband to Jennifer Aniston. So rich people still deal with everything we do. They get stolen from. They get lack of privacy. They get cheated on. They get sick. They get fired. They get passed up. They get old. It does happen. Now, yes, would it help if we had millions of dollars in the bank? I think it would help all of us. But if you are feeling, and, I grew up in a family that most of the years we were poor. We had a couple good years, but for most of the years it was motels, living in grandma's house. I went to 12 schools, moved a lot. And you feel like you're never going to get there. But when we tell you to pamper yourself, that doesn't mean to spend millions of dollars on a European vacation and private jets and all that. But if you feel like you want to, be in a hotel and get some room service, and you want to get a little bit of that feel, do a staycation. If you want to feel like you want to ride first class, save up some points. There's a lot of people that middle income America can figure out how to get onto first class because of what they manage with points. There's this science between your airline points. There's the couponing. I think these are cool. I want to start watching those shows because these people are able to get really, really cool things. But, if you want to feel like you're having champagne in a jacuzzi, you could do that. If you want to feel like you have a nice, fancy meal. So look at ways you could pamper yourself if you feel like you want to have that taste. Excuse me. But, yeah, if you are sick of seeing Taylor Swift, I hear you. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.